This is part 2 of our video. If you are looking for part 1, please check the link at the end of this video. Please can you also drop a like and subscribe. We value your comments and enjoy a good discussion. Number 2. The economy. For the purposes of this section, we will talk in terms of euros and not rubles. At the time of this video, the dollar to euro exchange rate was fairly close to 1-to-1. Russia promised in October that all mobilized privates will receive a monthly wage of 3,000 euros after joining their military unit. Those of higher ranks were promised to be paid even more, between 3,600 and 3,900 euros. If the authorities' reports that around 320,000 people have been mobilized are to be believed, which we find doubtful, but let's go with it, and assuming that they will try to maintain this figure, then the monthly expenditures on wages for just the October mobilization will stand at 973 million euros. However, the salaries of the mobilized may become but a small proportion of the expenses compared to the compensation payouts for the wounded and killed. The authorities promised to pay 94,200 euros to each of the wounded, and 190,000 to the families of the deceased. As we have already discussed above, due to the poor training, the mobilized troops will suffer more casualties than the regular or professional corps. So, what can the Russian economy expect in terms of compensation payouts? If we take the lowest estimate at 15% killed and 45% wounded and assume that these casualties will span over an entire year, the budget will require to spend 22.7 billion euros on compensations. If Russia goes ahead with its expectation to draft an additional 130,000 more people to make up for the losses, the expenses will go to as high as 34.7 billion euros. 15.77 billion euros would be required annually to pay the wages of the 450,000 mobilized troops, although this will be diluted by those killed and those who leave the service due to wounding. If you add in the wages and compensation together, you are looking at a conservative cost of approximately 50 billion euros. Keep in mind that is to fund the mobilization in terms of two costs only. Then you need weapons and supplies. According to the electronic budget portal, as of November 2nd, the new data has been deemed classified, so not released, with a grouping of approximately 200,000 people. 30.8 billion euros have already been spent on the purchase of weapons this year, 6 billion euros was spent on weapons repair, salaries for the defense ministry amounted to 13 billion euros, and 6 billion were spent on food, fuel, clothing, various services, and the purchase of goods. This data is still incomplete since many budget expenditures are usually only reported at the end of each year. But with the estimated increase in mobilized troops and those already in theater, you can happily double the variable costs noted above. Then of course you must factor in corruption, which has always been a major problem for the Russians. For example, Zabaykalsky Krai Duma deputy Andrei Gurulev said that 1.5 million sets of uniforms had disappeared from the Ministry of Defense. They would need to be replaced. That would take time and money. The war is going to leave a massive hole in the country's finances, a black hole that will be estimated at almost 65 billion euros. This is money that is going to need to be found somewhere, or the Russian state will again fail to make its debt payments. The only alternative will be to shed significant costs in other areas of Russian life, hike taxes, and of course borrow. Borrowing will be dangerous, as the cost of doing so will become more expensive as time goes on. The war was a badly thought-out move by Putin in the first place, but with the need to double down fast becoming obvious, the costs of this war will become unbearable on the Russian economy, and even if they succeed in taking Ukraine, they will have the costs to deal with for years to come. Let's keep in mind they have only the 11th largest economy in the world. Even Italy has a larger GDP. Number 3. The Russian public. The Russian people have already shown that are unhappy with the war in Ukraine. It estimated that after the last mobilization 700,000 eligible men fled the country in panic. There were queues on the border, protests in the street. It was a general nightmare. As Putin was elected democratically, or at least with the impression of democracy, he is acutely aware that he needs to keep at least most of the population on side and supporting this campaign. But people's minds will sour incredibly quickly when their men are returning home in zinc coffins. Since the start of the war, an estimated 19,500 had been detained by the authorities. If people protest, he will have to crack down, and if you start doing that too much, you can give the impression of dictatorship, so he is having to walk an incredibly fine line when it comes to how he responds to his people and their righteous anger. So, if he calls another mobilization, what will the result be with regards to his people? We firmly believe that he can expect more protests. Remember, this is country already under massive strain and having to deal with loss that they didn't see as important or necessary. The Russians do not see this as their war. Whilst they will undoubtedly support their own men, the people see the bloodshed as unnecessary. The Putin propaganda machine has not been very successful in convincing the public of the need for this war. Most concerningly to him, he will have to deal with more rejections of the mobilization orders and then protests within the ranks. As mentioned, they have already lost huge number of potential recruits who have fled the country. This means they will also start having to drop the overall quality of the army in favor of achieving the desired quantity. I have no doubt that a further mobilization will be heavily rejected by the public, and any men actually co-opted will be of extremely poor quality and prone to failure.